Right now we have a major issue in this country, and that's a 75% reoffending rate between the 18 and 25-year-old age group. And we don't seem to be doing anything about it. We're quite happy to spend the money building new prisons and filling them with people who shouldn't be there. Amber has a 7% reoffending rate, and that must tell a story, that if people come to Amber, they're far less likely to turn to crime and go back to drugs. I'm disappointed, but also quite surprised that society as a whole, whenever this 75% reoffending rate is mentioned, people seem quite surprised that it's that high. And it's really not surprising at all, because if you have nowhere to go when you're released, if the only thing you know is the way that you used to be and the life you used to have and the friends you used to have, then what else are individuals going to do when they walk out the prison gates and get on the train or the bus or whatever it is to get back home? It's the only life they know. If we can have Ambers round the country, there is an alternative life that they can experience. And suddenly the 75%, if you take away the need to reoffend, and the need to reoffend is you've got to clothe yourself, you've got to eat, and you've got to stay somewhere. Now, if the only way you can do that is by stealing, then you'll steal. That's human nature, is survival. If you take away the need to steal and the need to use drugs, why commit any crime? We're dealing not with criminals. There will always be the hardened criminal. The kids we're dealing with, the kids that come to Amber and the kids that are filling the prisons, are not criminals. They've done some crime and they've done some stupid things, but they're not inwardly criminals. If you take away the need, you will take away the crime and the reoffending, and you'd empty half of the prisons. I think to break the cycle of reoffending, there has to be a total relook at the system. And right now, the money is being spent on the effect rather than the cause. We're picking up the pieces. The communities that these kids come from are suffering, the kids themselves are suffering, and society in general is suffering. And we need to break the cycle. And some of the money that's used at the back end, the prisons, needs to be transferred or new money found to open Ambers in a number of different counties. And if you think that each Amber takes 60 people a year, 60 to 70 people come through an Amber site in a year, 80% of them will leave us into work, into further education, or into their own accommodation with the need to reoffend removed. They're not going back to prison. And the 2-year statistics of how many people offend within 2 years of release is totally irrelevant, because if you can remove the need in the first 2 or 3 weeks, people aren't waiting 18 months or 20 months and then suddenly reoffending. They're reoffending to survive as soon as they come out of prison. Remove the need to reoffend and they will stop reoffending, and we will save this society a fortune. A couple of years ago, Amber did a survey, and we took the crime levels of Amberteers who were with us at that particular moment. And granted, we had some prolific offenders, but then there was a lot of prolific offenders throughout the country. And we took their level of crime and the cost of that, and the cost of the police, and the cost of the courts and the prisons, and we added it together. And Amber is saving, and over the 13 years has saved the country £100 million. Now, if you multiply that even to half the country, that's another 50 counties, we would be saving an absolute fortune. And it's so important that rather than spending an equivalent amount of money building a new prison, if we put it into solving the problem before it happens and giving these kids somewhere to go, so many of the answers would be solved. Unless we do something to try and break this cycle, we're going to see this happening in 10 and 20 years' time. There has to be a time that we say enough is enough, we put some money into stopping the problem, helping the kids, because in many ways these kids are the victims. I know society see them as obnoxious, loud, drunken youths. If you actually look underneath the skin, for most of them, they are actually the victims. They've had a miserable upbringing, they've missed out all their lives on things that we've taken for granted, and it's their way of, if you like, sticking two fingers up to society and saying, nobody looked after me, I'm not going to care about anybody else. And if we're happy to live with that, that's fine. But I don't think we are. And I think we owe it to them, and we certainly owe it to ourselves and the communities to do something about it.